Hi, Reggie and Mr. and Mrs. Dooley. This is generally for all Dooleys. And I mean Reggie, Mark and Charmaine, not the Dooleys of the 1980s pop combo fame. Now, I've given Reggie a new piece, The Sleuth. We've had a little bit of a rocky start this term. You can't help being ill, Reggie. Very, very unfortunate that you were ill at the beginning of term. A couple of lessons missed because of misunderstandings. I think you know that now when you have a lesson at lunchtime, you speak to your form teacher and you get a permission to go and have lunch either earlier or later. You have lunch at the sitting where your lesson isn't. You're perfectly entitled to do that. So that's what happens when we have lunch, because whenever you've had a lesson timetable at lunchtime, it's been impossible for me to find you. I'll try not to schedule your lessons at lunchtime, but it's very difficult because we have to rotate. As visiting music teachers, we have to rotate our lesson times, which is why lessons won't always be on the same day. So generally I try and email the timetable out to people in advance, but if I don't, the lessons are always published at the beginning of the week on the notice board in the junior school. You'll see that the lessons are always up there. Now, a couple of things you need to do. I'm sorry this is going to be about 5 minutes, this video, but it's a general instruction video, and you can all use this, because if Reggie has any questions, or if you're just happen to be watching him playing, you could also help out by just maybe being conscious of what I'm asking him to do at the moment. Reggie's got quite a good innate musical talent. Plays once you know a piece, you play it really nicely, but it's a little bit difficult for you to get to know new music at the moment. The rules are, okay, I'm just going to stick to a couple of technical rules about the trumpet at the moment. You tend not to hold the trumpet properly. Okay, it's important, you don't always have to stand up, but it's important that when you play, you hold the trumpet at a decent angle, that you don't do this, you don't let your elbows kind of rest against your chest like that, that you keep your elbows free, and you keep the trumpet relatively high. You don't have to sort of point it in the air or anything like that. It doesn't even have to be parallel with the floor. It doesn't even have to be entirely horizontal. It can be, 20, 30 degrees down. That's absolutely fine. Something comfortable, but not pointing at the floor like that. It helps to play standing up frequently, because your feet firmly on the floor, and your shoulders back, and the trumpet are held at about 20, 30 degrees, and you can breathe well that way. When you're sitting in a chair, we tend to slump over a bit. So occasionally you can stand up and practice. And if you sit down, sit with your back either firmly slid right back into the chair, and with your back straight, or sit forwards and then with your feet underneath you and firmly on the floor, with your back straight. That's important, okay? It's really important. Now, just as important is how you actually hold the trumpet in your hand. And you've got into a lot of rather bad habits. What we do with our right hand is very, very simple. There's nothing like the piano or the violin. We've basically got 3 valves to press, and only 3. But we do have to have each valve available at any point. And that means keeping your fingers on the valve tips. What you tend to do is you tend to sort of do kind of things like this while you're playing. You kind of let go of the valves that you're not using, and sometimes you even put 2 fingers on one valve. Now, that's completely forbidden, okay? You have to keep your little finger in there, and it stays in there. And your thumb, don't let that mouthpiece tube, the mouth pipe as it's called, don't let that rest in the crook of your finger and thumb like that. Get your thumb between the first and second valves. It's a bit uncomfortable to begin with, but if you do that, it'll encourage you not to get your fingers on the valves like that. You can see what happens when I'm moving them Look how slowly they move when I'm moving my fingers quite quickly. That's because the ends of your fingers move much swifter than the kind of halfway along your finger. So you should keep the ends of your fingers on the valves. It gives a much better action, and also when you play, the valves shouldn't be moved slowly up and down. They have to be moved promptly. So when you go between different fingers, the valve, you have to think of it as like a switch. When you turn a light switch on, you don't do it like that, because you'll hear the sparks as you break the connection. So the valve goes down or it's up. We never play with the valve halfway down, and we never start a note while the valve is still going down. We press the valve down, then we play. Now, when you move between fingers, there's no need to take your fingers right away. Now, it'll take you a few weeks to get used to doing this, but when you play the C major scale, you don't do this. There's no need to kind of reset the fingers valves between each note. You go straight from one finger to another like this. That enables us to move around the instrument quickly. If you get into the habit of taking your fingers off every time you change valves, you'll never be able to move smoothly between one note and another. And you'll also, more importantly, not be able to go. It's very important to be able to move between one finger and another without always taking the fingers away. Sorry, this is going on a little bit, but it's quite important. It's going to be nearer 10 minutes by the time I've finished. So that's important. Now, the sleuth, okay, I've given you this piece because it's actually on the Associated Board grades syllabus. I think it's grade 2 or grade 3. And it uses a lot of third valve. So to play this piece, you're going to need to keep your fingers over the valves, not pressed on them, but you're going to need to keep your fingers on the valves. Now, this piece, I'm going to play it. It should be played about this speed, and you count, it starts on the 4th beat, so we count 1, 2, 3. Even 3 beats at the end that we don't play, which you have to think, okay? So don't you play with one hand. I was only doing that just so you can hear the beat like this, okay? Now, it's important that you play, that you sustain notes. So you don't just play short notes, okay? When they're marked short with a dot underneath or above, that means staccato. When there's a line over them, like the beginning of the second line, it's the second line of music, the C has got a line over it. We call that's the opposite of staccato, that's a tenuto. That means you play a long note, you play the note for its full value, okay? And you'll see that this piece has got a couple of dots and dashes written. The first note is the staccato. See 2 short notes followed by a long one there. That's important. And also, if we have a note, if we have a dotted crotchet, like the first full bar is a dotted crotchet, and there's also a dotted crotchet in the second bar of the second line, you tend to play a very short note and then the next note, okay? What you have to do is you have to hold a note until the next note starts. The idea is we join our notes together unless they're marked with a staccato. This is generally called articulation, and it's about how we give music. It's a little bit like speaking, okay? It's a little bit like language. It gives the piece a little bit more meaning and direction, okay? So it's not just about the pitches of the notes and the rhythm, but it's about how we attack and sustain and sometimes play shorter notes. And that's really important. It gives music its innate character. You can completely change a piece by changing what we call the articulation, which is which notes are short, which are long, which are tongued, which are slurred. Okay, so I'm going to play this piece again now without clicking my fingers all the way through. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you can work at that for this week and see if you can do a little bit of practice. The secret with practice is to do little and often. Don't just play one day, half an hour, okay? That won't do you any good at all. You'll just wear yourself out and you won't improve. The secret is to practice little bits every day, if you can, okay? And not just every other day, but see if you can make, it's like climbing a ladder. You have to do it one step at a time. And the trumpet is not like other instruments. The piano, you can sit and play the piano for 2 hours without getting tired, okay? The trumpet is an instrument, you'll start getting tired literally after a couple of minutes, which is why we have to train almost like a sportsman to play the trumpet, because we use all these muscles and stuff, which are muscles which we don't use in everyday life. Your hands, your fingers, you use, all the time. And your arms, okay, which is what you use to play the piano or the violin or other instruments like that. Trumpet is not like that. You're using a lot of muscles which you don't normally use. I mean, we basically use our lip muscles not to dribble, and that's and to smile and things like that, and to help us speak. But it's not as strenuous as actually playing the trumpet. So you need to train, and the best way of training is to do little and often. So you do 5-10 minutes every day. I mean, every day. You won't manage to do it every day, but you try and do it every day, okay? That's the main thing. Okay, sorry this has been nearly 13 minutes worth of me blabbering on, but it's important that I give you a little bit of extra time investment now, and that you all get to see this. Okay, I'm going to load it up to the internet. Hopefully you'll be able to see it on YouTube. Okay, bye.